Welcome to the chalkboard, my fellow football nerds, for episode number 121 of Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Shane Haff, and you can follow me on Twitter and YouTube at Shane Haff NFL. I'm joined today by the best co-host in the game. You've heard him on the Tough Cover radio show. It is Mark Henry Jr. Give him a follow on Twitter at MarkHenryJr_. Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I was in the mud today, as Shane knows, as our followers know, with people about Jalen Hurts, and it feels like it got me into the right mood for football season. Like I'm officially back. Like I'm officially in the mode where we got a football game this week, and I'm excited for this draft. One of my favorite podcasts we do.
Yeah, football season, Mark, is back, and I know it because he was arguing with people on Twitter all day today.
It was bad. Took up way too much of my time. But Shane came in and defended me a little bit. That's as I tweeted. That's my co-host. That's my co-host, as T.O. would say.
I've got his back most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
All right. Well, we're going to get into it. We are drafting NFL award winners. We're going to be going through MVP, Offensive and Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, First Coach Fired, and then at the end, we're each going to draft our 5 favorite over-under win totals. So we're going to track those separately to see who gets the most right throughout the year. But I do have a crown to defend because I did win this exercise last year by 1 pick over Mark. So Mark's shaking his head. It's out there. You can go find it. So let's dive into it here. I'll throw this up on the screen. We have listed here the top candidates at each of these along with their odds. The odds do not play into it here. It's just informational for you guys. It's just if you get the right pick, you get a point. So we'll go from there. Mark, you said you had 2 guys you were really trying to decide between for MVP. And so how about I go first, and hopefully I'll take one of them off your plate for you.
That's fair.
Okay. So I am going to go with I'm going with Patrick Mahomes. Until he doesn't win the MVP, Patrick Mahomes is the MVP until he's not the MVP. Quarterbacks have won MVP 15 of the last 16 years. Every MVP has won 11-plus games, and the QB of the 1 or the 2 seed has won each of the last 10 years. And Mahomes, like the floor with Mahomes is like 11 wins, being like the 2 seed in the AFC. He checks all the boxes, so I'm going to take Mahomes number 1 overall.
Yeah, the safety of Mahomes makes him the number 1 pick, and I would have done that as well. But my actual pick for MVP this year, biased as it may be, is the guy that I was arguing about all day on Twitter, and it's Jalen Hurts. I actually think his numbers will be better than they were last year because I think the Eagles will probably be in more close games, which means he'll probably have to pass a little bit more. He'll have a little bit more passing yards, a little bit more passing touchdowns. Even if the rushing touchdowns regress a little bit, I don't think him being a factor in the running game will regress. So Jalen Hurts is my pick for MVP.
All right. So we go the 2 guys that finished 1-2 last year. 1-2 off the board here. Now we are snake drafting these. And so Mark, you get the next pick here too. You get 2 in a row.
I'm going to go with the guy that I think Shane might pick here on the turn. But I'm going a little bit farther down the odds than you'd expect. And I'm going with a little bit of a narrative. And I think this guy is going to take a leap this year. I look at last year as his actual rookie year.
Because you do it.
Because 2 years
ago, literally number 2 on my list.
He was number 3 for me. So I'm going with Trevor Lawrence. Lawrence. If it wasn't for Jalen Hurts, Trevor Lawrence would be my pick. I think it's just because Mahomes is such a realistically, Mahomes is the safest pick. That's why he's plus 600. And he's Mahomes. He basically has a 50% chance of winning MVP. It's just what it is. But it's not fun to pick him. So if I'm going out on a ledge and not picking him for MVP, it's between Hurts and Lawrence for me. I agree, Miss Chris. But Jalen is my pick, but Trevor is right behind him because I think Jacksonville is going to win 12 or 13 games. I've been very clear about that. I feel like I'm going to use this time to, I don't know if you've noticed this, Shane, but I feel like there's been a little bit in the podcast community, in the football Twitter community, a little bit of like a groundswell of like, oh, well, the Jags aren't actually that good. Like that roster's not that good. And, I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans actually win that division, and they would have won it last year without injuries. I feel like no one is factoring in that Trevor Lawrence is one of the best quarterbacks in the world. And that means he's probably going to get better throughout his career. Like, I expect Trevor Lawrence to be a lot better than he was last year. And I think Trevor Lawrence was like a top 8 quarterback last year. I think he's got a chance to be one of the absolute best players on the planet this year. And Jacksonville, with their schedule, with their coach, with their roster that I like their defense more than most, I think. So I really am high on Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. And I don't understand this kind of narrative that's starting about the Jags.
Yeah, man, it guts me that you got Trevor Lawrence there. Love that bet. Have money on that bet. I have money on Lawrence plus 1,600. I think he's going to take another leap. I think the Jags are going to be really good this year. Don't forget they add Calvin Ridley this year. So, Miss Chris here is tracking with your draft a lot more than mine. Says that Mahomes is not going to win the MVP. So, more on your side than mine so far. Let's see if I can turn that around here with my next 2 picks. So, I'm gonna be pretty chalky here. Like Trevor Lawrence was my outside the box thinking guy, but I'm gonna take Josh Allen. Josh Allen was unreal last year before his injury. I've posted this out before. We've talked about it on this podcast. Top 2 in EPA and success rate in DVOA before the injury, and then the accuracy was gone. And I think people remember how the season ended for the Bills with Josh Allen playing hero ball that maybe wasn't hero ball. Maybe he just couldn't throw an accurate underneath pass. That's certainly how they dialed things up. I think you get Josh Allen back this year. They went and they drafted Dalton Kincaid. I think Josh Allen has the potential to light up scoreboards this year and hasn't won the award. Maybe this is the year that Josh Allen gets it. And then I'm going to stick in the AFC, and I'm just going to go with the next chalky guy, and that's Joe Burrow. Those were 4 and 5 on my list. So I had Lawrence 2, Hurts 3. The Bengals offense is just good. I mean, Joe Burrow he's not electric in the way that Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts are. He's always steady. He's always good. He's thrown to the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL. I like Joe Burrow's odds as well. So I'll go Allen and Burrow here and kick it back to you for 2 picks.
So my 2 picks are based on offensive coordinator swaps, basically. And my first one is actually the guy I had 4th on my list above Allen and Burrow. So it's shocking, even though they have way worse odds, but I'm going with Lamar Jackson. And I'm not even necessarily buying in on this. I think there's a chance we're overhyping the offensive coordinator swap a little bit, but the upside with Lamar is that we've seen him win MVP before. So you tweak that around a little bit. He's a better passer than he was when he won MVP. So maybe he gets a little bit less rushing stats than he did in his MVP year, but his passing stats will be a bit better. And it would take 12 or 13 wins from Baltimore, which I'm starting to talk myself in on Baltimore. Because I think I'm higher on their defense than consensus. So I'm starting to talk myself in a bit on Baltimore in general. So Lamar Jackson is an easy pick for me there. And here's where it's tough. My pick is between 2 Justins.
By the way, hold on before you say this. We got a comment here at Lamar, but because of his new toy, Zay Flowers, I'm just telling you, if you play fantasy football, and I don't, but I love to make fantasy football team names, and I saw this one. If you have Zay Flowers and your team name is not April Showers Bring Zay Flowers,
that's a pretty good name.
You got to get out of here. Go change it right now.
Name. That's a good name. And so with my 4th pick here, I'm deciding between 2 dudes named Justin. And to make it easy for Shane, I'll pick the one that's on the board there. I'll take Justin Herbert. Here's my take. I think Justin Fields is actually the guy I want to pick, to be quite honest. I just don't think the Bears could be good enough to justify it. And also, a little twist here. As you know, I'm not a Justin Herbert guy. But you know who is a Justin Herbert guy? The nerds like Shane who vote on the MVP award, who all love Justin Herbert. So if he finally wins 10 or 11 games, I said nerds lovingly, but if Herbert wins 10 or 11 games and or 11 or 12 games and the Chargers put up a lot of points, I'm sure there'll be writers jonesing to vote for Justin Herbert because it'll get them a lot of points on football Twitter.
Yeah. Justin Herbert's a good pick there. Those are the guys that were left on my list. I really wanted to pick Lamar Jackson more so than Justin Herbert, but still. Let's see. I'm not going to go Justin Fields. I'm trying to decide between two names here, though, because the MVP is such a narrative award, and I think there's two narratives on this list that would be noteworthy. And one would be Aaron Rodgers having a down year after back-to-back MVPs, switching teams, getting the Jets to the playoffs, and winning MVP again. The other is Tua, who led the league in EPA last year before he started getting injured, staying healthy and leading the league in EPA this year. I think both of those are good stories. I think one of them is more likely to happen than the other, though. And so I'm going to take Tua as my fourth candidate here. If he stays healthy, we saw what the offense could be last year. He's just got to stay healthy. I don't know if he can. If he does, it's a feel-good story that the media would like to, rally behind. The guy gets knocked out of several games last year, comes back and stays healthy. So I will take Tua for my last pick to round out MVP here.
I'm a little scared that Tua will get a little bit of the team's so stacked. Like anyone can play in that. Like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Like I'm a little worried. I would have went with Fields personally, just because I think there's so much. If they go 9-8, it'll be because he does so much on his own. So Fields would have been. Fields is my top guy that didn't get drafted. I don't think either of us are buying in on the Rodgers thing, but he would have been 9th for me.
Yeah, that's fair on the Fields thing. I just keep coming back to how often it goes to a quarterback of a 1 or a 2 seed, and I just don't think that's a ceiling for the Bears. So fair. I do expect a big leap from Fields this year, but I don't know about that one. Got more comments rolling in. Fire Crew VR is in the chat. You guys keep the comments rolling in. We drafted MVPs. Mark,
by the way,
first for your favorite award, Offensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, boo, terrible award. But by the way, we drafted 7 AFC quarterbacks and Jalen Hurts in that exercise. You have four AFC quarterbacks. Just to give people an idea why it's like, oh, the Eagles can't repeat in the NFC. No one ever goes back to the Super Bowl. That exercise is a good example of why it's quite possible, in my opinion. I hate this award with a burning passion, Offensive Player of the Year. They should just formally say that MVP is a quarterback award and that Offensive Player of the Year is a non-quarterback player award. That's what they should do, and it's stupid that they don't.
Did you know in the last 10 years, 4 quarterbacks have won this award?
Yeah, I think it's trending towards being a non-QB award.
I'm pretty sure it's not any time in the last 4 or 5 years, but
yeah, I think there was a time where they would just give MVP and Offensive Player of the Year to the same guy. I feel like that, which is probably by the letter of the law, is probably the correct way to do it. But whatever. I actually do think that it is probably fair to recognize non-quarterbacks. So with the first pick, I'll take Justin Jefferson. I don't think I have to give much reason why he's the best non-quarterback on the planet. Do you agree with that?
Best non-quarterback? Probably.
TJ Watt's the only guy that is close for me, honestly.
Yeah,
it's like that.
I would have a consideration for edge rusher, but yeah, probably.
Is the gap between Jefferson and the next edge, though, or the next receiver, higher than the gap between whoever you want to say, Parsons and Watt?
Yes, but
that makes
there's a lot more good receivers than there are good edge rushers, I think.
We're going to talk about that in Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know if I agree with that, but it's your pick. I'll let you go.
All right. Did you know the last repeat Offensive Player of the Year was Marshall Faulk, who three-peated in 1999, 2000, and 2001. So Jefferson was actually not the number one guy on my board because I think if he has a fantastic year this year, people are just going to be like, well, yeah, he did that last year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Although he was just number 2 on my board. So I didn't drop him very far. But the number one guy on my board is Christian McCaffrey. You saw what the 49ers offense did last year after the Christian McCaffrey trade. And I think that offense is going to run through Christian McCaffrey again this year. I think it's possible he ends up with 1,000 rushing yards, 800-900, maybe 1,000 receiving yards as well. especially, what are the 49ers doing at quarterback? So I think that offense has to run through Christian McCaffrey. If the 49ers are good, it will be because of Christian McCaffrey. So I could see him having a good pathway to win this award. So he'll be my number one pick. For number two, I'll go Jamar Chase. Again, that's a pretty chalky pick. He is currently the favorite. I don't know that he'll have a better year than Justin Jefferson. But I think if they have similar years, Chase will get the nod over Jefferson just because Jefferson won it last year. So I'll go McCaffrey and Chase.
I'll take Tyreek Hill. I wanted Chase. Hill's an easy one. The impact he has is just insane. And here's where I go a little bit off the board. Do I want to go off the board? I'm struggling here. No, you know what? I'll stay on the board. Give me Derrick Henry. I don't love the pick, to be quite honest. Yeah, I don't love the pick. But if the Titans are good, it'll be because of him. And he's won it before. So I'll go with Henry, even though I don't like it at all. I hate this award.
Okay. I am going to go with give me Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson had 1,100 yards last year. He did it with Zach Wilson, Mike White, and Joe Flacco as his quarterbacks. This year, he's got Aaron Rodgers. I think Garrett Wilson could put up some crazy numbers at this position. So give me Garrett Wilson. And then I think this is the spot. I'm taking Justin Fields. If Justin Fields does the 8-9, 9-8 thing with the Bears, like we talked about at MVP, I don't think he wins MVP. But I think that's a place that they might give Offensive Player of the Year to a quarterback that did not win the MVP. His team wasn't good enough to win the MVP, but he wins Offensive Player of the Year anyways. So Garrett Wilson and Justin Fields for me.
I like it. I like that call. Here, I'm going to go with a Cowboy, which doesn't make people happy. I'm going to go with Tony Pollard, and it's been my big kind of fantasy take. He was running back number 8 in fantasy last year while missing 3 games. Zeke was RB22 while missing 3 games. I think that there's a wide open and there's just a lot of carries available for Tony Pollard. I believe he's plus 3,500 if you want to fill that in. But Mike McCarthy has spent the whole offseason saying they passed too much and, they might have been number 1 in points, but it wasn't how they wanted to score them. All he's said all offseason is how much he wants to run the ball. I think they didn't add a second running back. The moment Zeke signed with New England, it was a huge moment for Tony Pollard. So I like Tony Pollard for sure as my last pick there. The one guy I was thinking about taking, and I maybe would sub out for Henry at this point, but I'll leave it alone, is Saquon. Because if the Giants,
Saquon was on my list too.
If the Giants are good, he's going to be such a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to sub out Henry for Saquon? Can I change that pick?
Sure. Do you know what his odds are?
4,500 actually.
4,500?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I have a Giant anywhere on here.
Wow. Yeah, you probably wouldn't. Saquon would be the only one.
Brian Dable for outside shot for Coach of the Year.
There we go.
Okay, so we're subbing out Saquon here. Which Miss Chris says is a good move because there's too much wear and tear on King Henry. Fire Crew is liking your Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill picks. So let's turn the page here to Defensive Player of the Year. Dang it, you get the first pick on this one, don't you?
And that makes me happy. If you would have asked me what do I want first pick on more than anything else in the draft, it's TJ Watt, and you know that. You know how the TJ Watt crusade I've been on this offseason. They went 8-2 in games that he played last year, and they went 1-6 in games that he missed. And then if you look at that over a 4-year stretch, they are 36-14-1 in the last 4 years when TJ Watt plays. I believe they're 1-10 when he misses it. I know it's not an MVP award, but I think TJ Watt is so clearly the most valuable defensive player in the world, and I don't think it's relatively close.
Yeah, so this is a pass rusher award. 8 pass rushers in the last 10 years have won this award. 1 cornerback, Stephon Gilmore, in 2018, I think. So it's just hard to get the counting stats if you're not a cornerback. Linebackers racking up a lot of tackles doesn't seem to do it. It's all about getting sacks. So I'm going to take the next two guys, I'm going to stay chalk here, but give me Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett. TJ Watt would have been my number one pick, and then Micah Parsons was number 2 on my list. Myles Garrett was number 3 on my list. But you with the first pick get Watt, so I'll go Parsons and Garrett.
I'll wrap around and I'll take Hassan Reddick. I know it's a little low on the list, a little bit of a homer pick, but Hassan Reddick, I think, why am I supposed to believe he's not going to be just as good as he was last year? If anything, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis inside should help open up things for him on the outside, and you can devote less attention to him. So Hassan Reddick's going to be my one pick there. And then here's where it gets tough, because the easy pick is Nick Bosa, but is he playing? Like, I don't know what's going on there. So I'm going to go Max Crosby. I'm going to go Max Crosby, even though I really want to take Bosa.
Right. Max Crosby. Yeah, it's interesting with Bosa. Like, you look at Donald, he's on a bad team. I don't think it's that happens. I don't love taking a cornerback. You look at Chris Jones, who's in a similar situation. Like, is he going to play? If he does play and he racks up sacks, like, that's impressive, more impressive at defensive tackle than it is at edge rusher. So I'm going to roll the dice here once, and I'm going to take Nick Bosa and think maybe he'll start playing. And then I'm going to go down the board here and give me Brian Burns. You've talked about how good you think the Panthers defense is going to be. I'm a big Brian Burns guy. If the Panthers are good, it's going to be on the strength of a really good defense, and Brian Burns is the best pass rusher they have. So in the vein of taking pass rushers, give me Nick Bosa and Brian Burns. Is that who you were about to take?
Yeah, you can probably isolate that sound. I am disgusted by you taking Brian Burns there. I feel like you've disrespected Burns over the years. So I'm happy to see you've seen the light. He's an absolute stud, and I think Ejiro Evero is going to get the absolute best out of him. I'm torn here. I'm torn between two guys because I thought there was no way you were taking Burns. I could go with Quinnen Williams, and that's a pretty easy pick to make right there with the pub he's getting on Hard Knocks. Or I could go with a guy who's not on the board, but a guy that I'm a huge fan of in Matthew Judon. And that's the tough call. I'm going to go with Quinnen Williams just because I think the Jets will be more relevant than the Patriots this year, and Quinnen Williams is getting the shine on Hard Knocks. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Quinnen Williams.
All right. So that takes us to Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I'm up first on this one.
I'm glad because I don't know who I would take first.
Yeah, so in the last 10 years, Offensive Rookie of the Year has had 3 receivers, 3 quarterbacks, and 4 running backs. I'm taking Bijan Robinson. I think I picked the Falcons to make the playoffs. Bijan Robinson might rush for 2,000 yards this year behind that offensive line and the way Arthur Smith wants to play football and who their quarterback is. And if he does anything remotely close to, if he gets 1,700 yards, I don't know how he's not Rookie of the Year. So it's chalk, but Bijan Robinson, I think, is the easy first guy off the board.
I'll go ahead and take Bryce Young. He's the next guy up in odds, and I'm higher on the Panthers than most. I have them winning the division. So if they win the division, I feel like Bryce Young will probably get this even over Bijan. Even if Bijan puts up big numbers, I think a quarterback on a playoff team would definitely help out. But I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit low on the list, and I'm going to take CJ Stroud at 10-1. I think there's a chance we're underrating CJ Stroud in general coming into this year. I said during the draft process, I thought he was the most polished. I thought he was the most NFL ready. Ohio State plays a very pro system. So I don't think there's much of a transition. He's in a Shanahan offense that should make things easy for him. He doesn't have a great supporting cast, which is bad because it hurts him in terms of putting up numbers, but it's good in terms of he'll get all the credit. It won't go to anyone else. So I think there's also a chance for this is a fantasy thing and a real life thing that we're not considering that CJ Stroud. What if he just starts running more? Like we saw it in the Georgia game. he was running all over the place and he was using his legs, which seemed to be a weapon. And coming into college, he was a dual threat quarterback prospect. Ryan Day turned him into a pocket passer and turned him into what he wanted him to be, which was an accurate guy from the pocket in a pro system. But I think there's a chance he gets to the NFL and uses his feet more. And that could make him a little bit more electric than I think people are expecting. I could be wrong. Maybe it's something that he just uses his feet to move around in the pocket and he's just mobile enough to get around in the pocket. But I think there's some upside to Stroud that people aren't considering. And some upside to the Texans that people aren't considering because of that.
Yeah, you took 2 and 3 on my board. I went Robinson, Young, Stroud in terms of how I would have picked these guys as well. I'm gonna take the other quarterback on the board, and Anthony Richardson. If the Colts win 8 games, it'll be because Richardson balled out, because he doesn't have a top 50 receiver, he doesn't have a top 25 tight end, he doesn't have a top 75 running back. Now that the Colts are being stupid with Jonathan Taylor, he's it, and he's a dynamic runner. He might be able to put up some highlight reels. Get the Colts to 7-8 wins, and it might be good enough to get Offensive Rookie of the Year if the other quarterbacks don't do well, which is what this has to be bet on, because if a quarterback comes in and leads the team to the playoffs as a rookie, they're going to be Rookie of the Year, barring a record-setting campaign from Bijan Robinson. So it's a little bit hedging for those guys, but I'll take Anthony Richardson here.
Who's the best skill player on Young, Stroud, or Richardson's team? It's like Miles Sanders or Dameon Pierce.
Yeah. Who's the best receiver that plays?
It's probably Pittman.
That's gross.
That's how it's bad. I mean, think about who's the number 1 receiver on the Panthers and Texans. They're probably the 2 worst receiving cores in the league. You have Adam Thielen, who looked cooked last year. You have DJ Shark, who I like. Jonathan Mingo.
He's already hurt.
He's already hurt. Jonathan Mingo, a rookie who we weren't particularly high on for Carolina. Terrace Marshall, who hasn't popped. CJ Stroud has Tank Dell and John Mechie, who are basically 2 rookies. He has Nico Collins. Nico Collins might be the best receiver on any of these 3 teams. I like Nico Collins. We haven't seen it a lot yet, but there's a lot of people who are really high on Nico. Pittman's the best one right now. Pittman caught 100 balls last year.
The Titans did get Dalton Schultz, right?
The Texans,
Sorry, I meant the Texans. Yeah.
The Dalton
not a receiver,
Schultz,
but
he's an interesting one. I think there's a chance he might just not be all that good. He might have just been a warm body in an offense that used the tight end.
Yeah, that's
possible. I guess we'll see though.
Yeah. Okay, so Anthony Richardson, and then I'm going to take my next pick here. I'm going to go with Jordan Addison.
Damn.
There's a ton of targets vacated by Adam Thielen.
Yep.
He's never going to be the focal point of the defense with Justin Jefferson on his team. I think there's a chance Jordan Addison can put up a lot of stats as a rookie in this Vikings offense. So give me Jordan Addison.
Yeah, I had a stat here that I wanted to pull up. Of course, I'm taking forever to do so. Basically, I have it here. Adam Thielen ran the 8th most routes of the last decade in terms of last year. That's how many routes Adam Thielen ran. Every other player in the top 10 and routes run in the last decade finished as a top 12 wide receiver in fantasy. That is the slot Jordan Addison is now fitting into. Adam Thielen was the only guy who's ran the amount of routes he did last year who hasn't been an elite productive player at his position. That's Addison just has a huge spot to step into. If Bijan gets hurt or disappoints, or the Falcons stink, and if none of the quarterbacks make the playoffs, Addison, I think, has by far the best chance of any receiver to win this award. But I'll go with Zay Flowers as my next off the board, another receiver, just because if he hits his ceiling and he's great right away, which we've seen a lot of rookie receivers be really good right away. If Zay Flowers is really good, then he's going to be the first really good receiver Lamar's ever played with. And maybe Lamar and him could create some magic together if he hits his upside right away. So that's why I'm going to go with Zay Flowers. And then with my last pick, I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs. There's rumors that they want to use Jahmyr Gibbs as a downfield threat. Did you see that?
I hadn't seen that.
They want to use him as like their deep ball threat, apparently they were saying, which I think just says something like, oh yeah, maybe you should have got a second receiver across from Amon-Ra. This is, I can't believe I'm using the time I'm picking Jahmyr Gibbs to do an anti-Lions thing. I'm starting to have feelings as we get closer to the playoffs or closer to the season that I think the Lions don't sniff the playoffs. Like, I'm starting to think maybe they win 7 or 8 games. I have them projected for 9. I have them missing the playoffs just barely. I'm starting to think we are putting a lot of eggs in some baskets that are not that sturdy when it comes to the Lions. It's like you're putting eggs in the Jared Goff being elite basket. You're putting eggs in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs being as elite as DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams were last year. You're putting eggs in the either Jameson Williams comes back or someone pops up out of nowhere to be somewhat of a second option after Amon-Ra St. Brown in this offense. You're hoping that someone pops up besides Aiden Hutchinson as a pass rusher on the defense. There is just a lot of questions with Detroit, and the closer we're getting, I'm getting more nervous. And that report that I saw with Jahmyr Gibbs just made me feel like, oh yeah, maybe you should have got another receiver.
Yeah, maybe you should take receivers in the top 12, not running backs. So, all right, well, it was down to Jahmyr Gibbs or Jackson Smith-Njigba for me, so you decided that for me. I'll go JSN. He steps into one of the best situations in football in terms of the quarterback he's working with and the receivers that are around him. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba was the best receiver in this draft. I think he lands in a perfect spot. And, I mean, I wouldn't bet him to go win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I wouldn't bet any of these.
Yeah, but I think John Robinson's going to win it, and I wouldn't bet a season long plus 300. But I'll take Jackson Smith-Njigba to round out the board here. So
yeah, the only odds I even somewhat like are Stroud at 10-1. But even that, I don't like the Texans enough to go bet it. There's just too many options. Like I said, I love Addison. Bijan's an obvious option. 3 really good QBs. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to Defensive Rookie of the Year. Mark, you get this one first. In the last 10 years, it's been 6 pass rushers, 3 cornerbacks, and 1 linebacker. Who's your first pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, my first pick, I'm staying right here in Philadelphia. And I just, keep taking Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm taking Jalen Carter. It's really close. You could tell me I am extremely confident that the Defensive Rookie of the Year will be one of Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. I think you can lock that in. I feel very confident in that. But Jalen Carter is just in the perfect situation. They're going to use him a lot, I think. I think he's going to play a lot of snaps, and I think he's going to play snaps next to some of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, to a point where the offensive lines are not going to be able to focus on him. The reports out of training camp with him are just out of this world. I just can't get over the fact that the Eagles almost won the Super Bowl, came plays away from winning the Super Bowl, and then went ahead and were able to add 1A or 1B in the best player in the draft. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I know that, that's not breaking news. We know that happened. We covered it 6 months ago on our draft shows, but it's just crazy to think about now that we're this close to the season, that's what happened this offseason. So I'm going to go with Jalen Carter just because of the situation.
All right. So I puts me up on the clock here.
Who would you have taken first?
I would have taken Will Anderson. I had Anderson 1, Jalen Carter 2. So I think a lot of times there's a little bit of an on-ramp to be a good interior pass rusher in the NFL. On average in the last 10 years, first-round defensive tackles have averaged like 2.3 sacks. Only 3 guys have gotten over 5 sacks, and I think you got to get sacks to probably have a shot to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And while I think Carter's really good, you've also got Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. There's so many guys to steal those sacks away. So it can work both ways. Maybe people are focused on other guys and it gives you opportunities, or maybe you're winning and other guys are just winning faster. So, but whichever one you took, I would have been happy to take the other. So I'll take Will Anderson here. And then for my second pick, I'm going down the board a bit, and I think you're going to hate it, Mark, but I'm taking Jack Campbell.
Oh,
I think, is that because you hate it or because you wanted him?
I don't like it.
Don't like it. Jack Campbell shouldn't have been anywhere near a first-round pick, but he's a big, athletic, off-ball linebacker playing behind a bad defensive line that gets run on all the time. Like, I think Jack Campbell is just going to have like 140 tackles this year, and he may not even be a good player. But there's nobody there. The defensive line in front of him is bad. I think he's just going to make a lot of tackles, and he might rack up enough tackles that he just gets Defensive Rookie of the Year. So Jack Campbell is my second pick.
I'm going to be quick here with my second and third pick, and I'm going to go with two corners who have been incredibly impressive in training camp, apparently, and both are looking like they're going to be starters, and both have been going up against good receiving cores and apparently holding their own. I'm going to go with Joey Porter Jr. Of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who was my CB1. And then I'm going to go down. I'm going to go up the odds list a bit, but go down my draft list a bit to CB4. And he knew right away. He knew I was going with Emmanuel Forbes. He knows that I'm an Emmanuel Forbes guy. He's got the ball skills to make this happen. That's the main reason I like this Forbes thing. He could have 5 or 6 picks, and that'll sway the voters a bit. Although I will say Tariq Woolen did that, and it didn't sway the voters. But the counter argument to that is I'd say Tariq Woolen probably would have won Defensive Rookie of the Year in like 98% of the years, but Sauce Gardner happened to be the best corner in football right away. So Tariq Woolen got jobbed out a bit there. But I think Emmanuel Forbes could have a Tariq Woolen-like year.
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, Tariq Woolen was a day 3 pick, and name recognition is a lot.
Yeah.
This is a 1-year window. Like, name recognition means a lot. This typically goes to, like, top half of the first-round guys, so I'm not even sure. Maybe Tariq Woolen would have won last year without Sauce Gardner. I'm not even convinced that's the case. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's really nobody left on the board that I particularly like. Like, I love Nolan Smith. Major questions about how much he's going to play.
Yeah.
I don't think Tyree Wilson or Lucas Van Ness are anywhere near ready to make an impact. And then you're out of pass rushers. You're looking at cornerbacks, and I don't love taking cornerbacks here, but I'm going to go Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez was my CB1 in the draft. I think he's hyper athletic. He's playing for Bill Belichick. He's going to get really good defensive coaching. So maybe Christian Gonzalez can be a part of a top 5 Patriots defense that plays way better than the sum of its parts. And Christian Gonzalez comes away with some interceptions off of that. So I'll take Gonzalez there. And then, man, I really don't like anybody that's left. I'm just going to go Witherspoon. Their defense was really bad last year. Witherspoon now up there opposite Tariq Woolen. You would assume, I don't know, who do you test? Do you test the day 3 guy that had an epic rookie season, or do you test the first-round pick? I don't know, but Devon Witherspoon will be my last pick to round it out here. So, Mark, what's that do? What's that do to your board here?
I'm struggling. I'm between two names here. I'm gonna go with Tyree Wilson. I was a bit higher on Wilson than you were. And there are reports that he's learning a lot from Crosby, and he's been kind of a quick learner in training camp. So I'll go with Tyree Wilson.
All right. So that ends that one. That brings us to Coach of the Year. And Mark, you are up first for Coach of the Year. Oh, never mind. I don't have any background for this one. I thought I had background about who's won this, but I don't. So you're up.
I want to get how many times this guy's won this here. Everyone knows that I've been high on the Steelers all off season. And Mike Tomlin
has never won Coach of the Year.
Wow. That's shocking. Never. That means he's going to win it this year. People are going to talk about that and be like, how's that possible? We all love him. He's the best coach. And I think the Steelers are going to win 11 or 12 games. I think they're going to be really good. And I don't think people are expecting that. So Mike Tomlin will get credit for that.
All right. So Mike Tomlin, I don't know, been around a long time, almost too long to win the award. It seems like this award goes to a first-year head coach whose team makes a leap. So I think you look no further than who was the biggest disaster of a head coach the year before. You go from Joe Judge, obviously Urban Meyer, but Doug Peterson should have won it. But you go Joe Judge into Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll wins the award. I'm looking at you, Nathaniel Hackett. Give me Sean Payton for Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
I mean, you telling me that if he's able to, even if they don't make the playoffs, if he's able to resurrect Russ's career and they look competent, that people aren't going to be falling out of their chairs to give Sean Payton all the credit. It comes from the media. All the media is going to pull for this guy. So Sean Payton is my number one pick here for Coach of the Year. And I am shocked that wasn't your guy. I thought for sure you were going to take him.
Yeah, no, I'm all aboard the Mike Tomlin bandwagon with the Steelers this year, but I have the Broncos at 9-8. So it's hard for me. I feel like he'll get credit, but it'll be like he won't get Coach of the Year if they go 9-8. Like I just think it's going to be tough for them to win 11 or 12 games like I have the Steelers winning.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So I'm going to go second here. A team that I think is going to win their division, and I think they're going to do it with a late round quarterback that's essentially a rookie in Desmond Ridder. Give me Arthur Smith for the Falcons. I think the Falcons make the playoffs this year. If you make the playoffs with Desmond Ridder as your quarterback, you are deserving of Coach of the Year, even though you're not a first-year head coach. So give me the Falcons, Arthur Smith here at plus 1,400.
I think it's a lot more likely he gets fired than he wins Coach of the Year, which isn't his fault, by the way. I just don't buy the Falcons. I'm going to go with two old guys here. It's surprising. I'm not going kind of the direction you'd think, but I'm going to go with Doug Peterson because I think there's a chance that the Jags win 13 or 14 games. And I think if that's the case, I think people will be blown away. And I think they'll give Doug that credit. And then my other name, I'm debating whether or not I want to do it. I'm going to go with Pete Carroll. I'm going to go with
Pete
Carroll.
Debating. Just pick Pete Carroll.
Yeah. The reason I'm debating is because no one ever wants to give him any credit. No one likes Pete Carroll. So I think I don't know if the writers would vote for Pete Carroll. But if the Seahawks are the 1 seed, like I'm projecting, he'll be a candidate.
All right. Yeah. Good picks there. I think Doug Peterson was robbed last year. But now he's got a good team. I don't know if he gets it or not, but if the Jags go win 11, 12 games, if the Seahawks win 11, 12 games like you are talking about, those guys are probably really good candidates. They were up there on my list. I'm going to go with DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans walking into Houston where he's following up. I mean, this is historically bad over the last few years for Houston. They make the splash in the draft. They get C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. You telling me those guys are in Rookie of the Year running conversation and DeMeco Ryans not in Coach of the Year conversations? They don't have to make the playoffs. But they do have a weak division, and you get 7-8 wins with a first-year quarterback as a first-year head coach. I think people are going to notice. I think everybody loves DeMeco Ryans, so I think he is a solid pick here. And then for my next one, it's tough. I don't love anybody that's left on the board. I'm debating between two guys in the same division right now. I'm gonna go with Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, you're buying all the way in on Green Bay. You should go with LaFleur.
Yeah, I was trying to think if I should diversify this, but I picked Green Bay to win the division. If they do that without Aaron Rodgers, Matt LaFleur is finally going to get the credit that I think he deserves. So give me LaFleur and the Packers.
So you have to go back to 1982 and 1983 to find what I'm going to say is going to happen here. But in 1982 and 1983, Joe Gibbs won back-to-back Coach of the Year awards. And you have to go back before that to 1967 and 1968, where Don Shula won back-to-back Coach of the Year awards. Some guy named Ali Sherman won back-to-back Coach of the Year awards in the 60s as well. And he was a New York Giants coach, and I'm going to go to another New York Giants coach to win back-to-back Coach of the Year awards, and it's Brian Daboll. The reason that I think it's not that ridiculous is because Shane, I just did a fantasy draft on Trilbro Dude. I do content with. He's a Sixers guy, but they did a fantasy football draft. So I helped run it, and we were talking about, some of our takes this year, and I was talking about how I'm higher on the Giants than consensus and how I think that they're just about even with Dallas. You would have thought that I said the Arizona Cardinals were going to win the Super Bowl People think the Giants stink. They think there's no way they win 8 games. Like, they think last year was an entire fluke and there's no way they'll be even relevant. So if Dable does what he did last year, people are going to be shocked, I think. Like, that's how much people are expecting them to regress. So that's why I'm going to pick them.
All right, good pick there. Good pick. The other guy I was debating was Dan Campbell. I don't necessarily think the Lions are going to be great, but I think there was a lot of love for Campbell last year, how they ended the year. If they make it into the playoffs this year, I think there's a good chance he could win the award. But I didn't pick him to make the playoffs, so I'm not going to pick Campbell here.
I had Frank Reich, but I think there's a chance he wins that division at like 7-10. So they wouldn't give him that credit, even if he goes 8-9. I don't know if they'd give him that credit. And then Eberflus, I have it 8-9, the Bears. But if the Bears do well, going from first pick to the playoffs could get Eberflus some credit. But I just don't believe in him, so it's hard to pick him.
All right. Comment here from Miss Chris. Sorry, I can't keep eyes open. I'm tired. Good night. Thanks for joining the show. You can catch the rest of it on archive. We'll have it out on podcasting platforms tomorrow, and obviously to be on YouTube right after this ends. So that brings us to our last award we're drafting, Mark. It is First Coach Fired. You get the first pick here, Mark. Look into your crystal ball. Who's going to be the first coach that gets fired?
First coach fired, I'm going to go with Ron Rivera, which I don't know if the Commanders would do that. I guess my reasoning is if they stink, it's not their guy. Like, it's a new ownership. He wasn't hired by them, so I'm going to go with Rivera.
All right. Yeah, and they've got Eric Bieniemy already in-house that could be their guy, their interim head coach and all that. I'm going to go Todd Bowles. I think the Bucs are going to be a disaster this year. Baker Mayfield's your starting quarterback. We really don't need to say more than that in 2023. But the offensive line is not very good. We know that they're going to be overly committed to running the ball, and it's not going to work. And Baker's not a very good quarterback. And I just think that the Buccaneers are probably going to be a disaster this year. I think Bowles should have been fired last year. I think they are going to realize that and make the move early in this season. So Bowles is number 1 for me. Number 2, there's 2 different guys I want to go here. I'm just going to pick one and see if the other guy makes it back to me. Give me Kevin Stefanski.
Oh, that's who I wanted.
Yes. All right, I picked right then. I think the Browns are also not going to be very good. I think Deshaun Watson might not be very good. And when it comes down to it, you tethered your franchise to Deshaun Watson. And so if it's not good, Kevin Stefanski's gone. And I think that's the likely outcome. So Stefanski goes, I think, early in this season.
And there's already been rumors that there's been some friction there, and Watson doesn't like the offense he's running and all that stuff. So I think Stefanski, I was actually debating picking him first. I had him second. I probably should have picked him first. But I'm going to go with Josh McDaniels with my next pick. I would have preferred Stefanski, but similarly, there's already kind of buzz going on that they feel like they messed this up. So I'm going to go with McDaniels. My next one, I'm going to go with
McDaniels is the other guy I was debating on, by the way. He's going to look great as the Patriots offensive coordinator next year.
I like that.
Or no. They've already got an offensive coordinator. Maybe Bill will do the same thing and he'll make
the
Josh
co-OC
McDaniels his defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I like that. He could be the co-OC, like Judge and Patricia were. I'm going to go with Dennis Allen. I'm low on the Saints. And I think there's a chance in the NFC South that a team could be like 4-7 and feel like, oh, if we fire our coach, maybe we can make the playoffs. So I have a chance. My 4th pick might be along the same lines, but I'm going to go with Dennis Allen.
All right. I really don't feel like there's anybody else on this list that is likely to get fired like mid-season. So with all that said, I'm just going to go with the unhinged owner, and I'll take Mike McCarthy. Like, I think
they love each other. I think they love each other too much.
Yeah, and it took forever for them to get rid of Garrett, and I really think the only way McCarthy goes is continued, sustained lack of success in the playoffs. But at the end of the day, I look at these other teams, and I just don't think any of them have an owner as unhinged as Jerry Jones that might get a call in on a radio show and somebody be like, you should fire Mike McCarthy. And he might be like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea, and just do it. So I don't know. I really don't think anybody else on this list is likely to get fired early. But I'm going to go with another guy here that he's not on the list. I really don't think he's going to get fired because this team's blatantly tanking. And they tampered to get this coach. They literally cheated the system, broke NFL rules and then watched this guy give up historic offensive performances in the Super Bowl, and they still hired him anyways. But I think it's possible that they just realize, maybe they've already realized, like, Jonathan Gannon's a joke. And you see, like, the social media content they're putting out. And I said this the other day, like, if somebody followed me around with a camera all day, they could find like a 2 minutes worth of footage to make me look like a total doofus. This is the Arizona Cardinals social media team, and that's what they put out. And it's atrocious. Maybe it's the best they've got. Maybe they're already like, yeah, we messed up. We need to make this guy look dumb so we can fire him after 6 weeks. I don't know, but I'll take Jonathan Gannon.
You got some fire in your gut? I
don't know what his odds are, though. Do you happen to have those?
I don't. I didn't see those odds.
I'll plug them in later.
I am split between Arthur Smith here, just because I think same thing as the Saints. They could be 4-7 and feel like they have a chance. I'll go with Arthur Smith. The name that I will throw out there as a possibility is one I thought about is Robert Saleh, because it is such a win now window and expectations are so high. If they started like 1-4, is there any chance Aaron Rodgers would like force him out of town? I don't know.
Yeah. So,
by the way, are we drafting Super Bowl winners as well?
I think we were supposed to, and I didn't.
Yeah. I think we were supposed to.
Yeah. Well, we got some time. We can do it. I was just going to point out, I think it's funny that the only overlap we have is I have Arthur Smith as coach of the year, and you have him as first coach fired.
Yeah. I don't love the pick. I don't think it's very likely.
All right. Do we want to do Super Bowl winners and then come back to over/under win totals?
Yeah. We can wing it with the graphic later on.
Okay. Let me just clear this, and we'll put in the team names, and I can look up the odds and stuff later. So
yeah, for sure.
Oops, I did that wrong. You're up first. You get first pick. I'll straighten this out while you make your first pick here.
Yeah, I'll go with the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know that I think Kansas City's probably the right pick, but the AFC is a lot better than the NFC. And my number 3 through 5, and then my 8 through 10 are in the AFC. So there's just more contenders, in my opinion, in the AFC. So I'll go with the Eagles.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's the obvious first pick there. It's got to be the Eagles. I was trying to look up. Do you know what their odds are?
I think it's around 650 or 700, depending where you're looking. Let me pull. Okay. I'll have it.
Don't worry about it. I'll pull it up later. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Chiefs. What you can insert your stat about, and with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you've got an 80% chance to make the conference title game.
100%.
100%. Yeah, whatever the stat is, as long as Patrick Mahomes is under center, the Chiefs have a really good shot. So I'll take the Chiefs for my first pick, and then I'm going to go to the Bills. I mean, I had Josh Allen as MVP, as one of my MVP picks for the same reason that I had him as an MVP pick. I'll take him. I'll take the Bills as a Super Bowl winner as well.
Yeah, the Chiefs are plus 600, the Bills are plus 900, and the Eagles are plus 800. So yeah, the Bills are definitely up there on my list. They would have been one of my 2 picks here. I'm going to surprise some people and go a little bit far down the board here and go all the way down to 30-1 plus 3,000 and go with the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ooh.
I think they have a wide open path to making the AFC Championship, with the fact that they're going to get like 5 free wins, it feels like, in their division at least. So I just feel really good about them making it there because of their division. And then with my other pick, I'll stick in the AFC and I'll go with the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 5th in odds, and you can find them around 10-1 at plus 1,000.
Okay. Bengals, Bills, Chiefs, Jags. Who do I want to take next? I'm gonna go. Give me the Baltimore Ravens. I think there's a chance that Lamar lights it up this year, kind of like we talked about earlier. I think the Ravens are a good team. I think if Lamar stays healthy, he's happy now in his contract. I think they could be a team that could make a run. It looks like they're at about 18-1 odds. And then I'm going to go. I need an NFC team here. I don't have a single NFC team on my list. I know the Cowboys are the second favorite team in the NFC. I have no faith in the Cowboys to win a playoff game. The 49ers are probably ahead of the Cowboys.
Yeah, they are.
I got no faith in the 49ers. They got no quarterback. So I'm going to go down the board and I'm going to steal one of your favorite picks, Seattle Seahawks. Give me the Seahawks at 35-1 to win the Super Bowl.
That's frustrating. That would have been my pick there for sure. That absolutely would have been my pick. I'm going to go down. I'm going to go up the board, and take the San Francisco 49ers. I'm not happy about it at all. But I think they're clearly the best one on the board. If I didn't want to take the Niners, by the way, we took my top 8. These are my top 8 ranked teams in terms of the best chances to win the Super Bowl. Pittsburgh would be next up for me. They're all the way down there at depending on where you're looking, 45-1 on some, 50-1, 66-1 on one. And then I would have taken a look at the Jets, who are around 16-1 or 18-1, depending where you're looking. But I had to go with the Niners. I'm happy I had 2 NFC, 2 AFC here.
Yeah, I remember last year when we did this, I can't remember exactly how it worked out, but one of us picked entirely AFC teams and one of us picked all NFC teams.
I think you went all AFC and I went all NFC.
Okay.
Because I think you got the Chiefs, which helped you win.
Yes. All right, so that takes us to drafting our favorite over-under win totals. We're each going to take 5 of these. We cannot repeat, but we could take opposite sides of a team, over and under. So I looked all these up on FanDuel today. These are the current over-unders and the odds. Let's see, you had first pick this time around, right?
Yeah, I picked the Eagles first, so you go first this time.
Okay, so I've got the first pick. Did we get off somewhere? Oh, no, we didn't. Okay, anyways, so I've got first pick here. I'm going to go to a team that is just going to be bad. They're going to be awful. I'm going to take an under here. They've only got 3 good players, and one of them has a bad back and a bad elbow. One of them is almost retired for a few years. The head coach is almost retired for a few years. And the third good player is going to see a hamstring specialist. And by the way, he's a receiver. So things are not looking good for the Los Angeles Rams. Give me the Rams if I can find them on my thing here. I know they're under 6.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are. Rams under 6.5 at -134.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. It would have been my number 2 pick. My number 1 pick, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns under 9.5. I'm very high on Cincinnati. I'm very high on Pittsburgh. I'm growing higher on Baltimore as we get closer to the season. The closer to the season we get, the more disastrous I think the season could be for the Cleveland Browns. So give me under 9.5. I think Stefanski might get fired, as we just discussed. So I love that. And to keep the positive vibes going, I'm going to go with a third straight under to start the draft here. And I'm going to go with one that's probably not my third pick, but because I think Shane's going to take it, I'm going to take the Saints at under 9.5 at -140, which you can get for better odds at other places, as I can attest to.
Yeah, the Saints were definitely on my list here. But I'm going to go. I'm going to go to another team that I hate. Another team whose coach that I picked to be fired. Like you said, we'll keep the positive train rolling here. Give me the Buccaneers under 6.5. I think there's a good chance this team stinks. I think there's a good chance they're dealing wide receivers at the deadline. Mike Evans has already said he's going to cut off negotiations. I think it's like Friday or something. I think there's a good chance they're firing head coaches and dealing guys at the deadline. So give me Tampa under 6.5. And then Finally, some positivity here. Mark, do you know when the last time Mike Tomlin won less than 8 games in a season was?
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It's never happened. Now, technically, he could win 8 games and not hit the over 8.5, but I mean, that's a thin line to walk. I love the Steelers. I know you love the Steelers. Steelers over 8.5. Love that love that bet.
And they've won 9 in the 2 years that there's been 17 games. So yes, that does help.
Yep. All right, that puts you on the board here for 2.
What is the number that you have for the Seahawks?
Seahawks are 8.5.
Yeah, give me the Seahawks at over 8.5. They have 4 free wins against the Rams and the Cardinals. So you're just asking them to go 5-8 throughout the rest of their schedule. So give me the Seahawks at over 8.5. And then what number do you have for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
The Jaguars are 9.5.
All right. I'm going to go with the Jags then. Give me the Jags at 9.5. I think it's another division bet here. Just I don't think that division's any good at all.
Right. That puts me back on the clock. I'm going to go negative again. A team that I hate. It's the Raiders. I'm going to take the Raiders under 6.5. Like we talked about earlier, McDaniel I think was a mistake. Jimmy G is a mistake. Jimmy G will not stay healthy in this offense. I think this could be a disastrous year for the Raiders. So I'll take the Raiders under 6.5. Then I'm going to end on a positive note. Unless you're an Eagles fan, give me the New York Giants over 7.5.
Wow.
I think the Giants are going to be a good football team this year. Kind of like I don't think they're going to compete for the division, but I think what we saw last year was not a mirage. Brian Daboll's a good coach, and they strengthen the offensive line, and you get Kayvon Thibodeau in his second year, and they get Deontay Banks, a guy that Wink Martindale's going to love. So I think the Giants, they play in the toughest division in the NFC, but the conference as a whole isn't that hard. So give me the Giants over 7.5.
I like that pick. It would have been my pick here. You stole a couple from me here with the Rams, the Steelers, and the Giants. But I'm going to go with a boring one, and I'm going to go with a risky one. But I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs over 11.5. If you look at the 5 years of Mahomes' career, 12-4, 12-4, 14-2, 12-5, and 14-3. And I believe that one 12-win season, one of those 3 12-win seasons was with him missing 3 games. And I think he's missed a game a couple times throughout those times. So I just don't see them winning less than 12 games under any circumstances.
All right. So Chiefs over 11.5. So our over-under win predictions, I went Rams under 6.5, Bucks under 6.5, Steelers over 8.5, Raiders under 6.5, Giants over 7.5. Mark went Browns under 9.5, Saints under 9.5, Seahawks over 8.5, Jags over 9.5, Chiefs over 11.5.
And I really strongly considered the Commanders under 6.5. That would have been the next one on my list.
Okay, the next one on my list would have been the Cardinals under 4.5.
Yeah, that would have been the next one on my list.
That's one I have bet, but there's no discount. Maybe Kyler Murray comes back and plays, and I don't know. They're just a mess. So, but I do have money on them under. Actually, I put money on them under 2.5 at boosted odds in case they're just a total train wreck.
I like that.
But all right, so that is going to wrap this episode up. We will be tweeting these graphics out throughout the week. You guys can let us know what you think, who you think's going to win, and then we'll revisit this at the end of the season once we have some final results. So that actually didn't take as long as I thought it would. I thought drafting 9 different things, I thought this was going to end up being like the 2-hour podcast.
I'm shocked. This is only an hour long. I thought that was going to go way longer.
Yeah, same. So, all right, well, Mark, that wraps up this show. You got any final thoughts? What do you got going on? Tell the people where they can find you. The floor is yours.
Yeah, you can find me at Mark Henry Jr. _ on Twitter, and you can check out the Tough Cover Radio Show every Saturday. on the Fox Sports The Gambler, iHeartRadio. It's going to be really fun this week. Full college slate on Saturday, full NFL slate on Sunday. So a lot to go over. It's going to be jam-packed on that show. But real quick, I want to use my final little segment here to talk about Steven Ruiz and to talk about Benjamin Solak and to talk about the Ringer, because I think what Steven Ruiz is doing is gross in terms of the engagement farming. And I think that the people like Ben Solak that retweet that and promote that with his QB rankings that he put out strictly to annoy certain fan bases for engagement. I think it's shameful. I don't think it's, what journalism is supposed to be in any shape, form, or fashion. And the big J journalists that are in my mentions now defending it's just an absolute joke to me that anyone can sit here and try to argue that Matthew Stafford being ranked above Jalen Hurts in the year 2023 is an acceptable sports opinion. I mean, that's getting promoted on like a national level, and all these writers are going to go out and retweet that and promote that, and people are just supposed to be fine with it. Like, what Steven Ruiz is doing is bold-faced. It's obvious. We all know what it is. It's Skip Bayless. It's hot take. It's blowhard. We've seen it. And you know what? I'll give him the respect because 2 years ago, I didn't know who he was. And now I do. So I guess it worked for him. I know his name. It's a shame that that's how media works. That's how sports media works. And it's a shame that that's how the Ringer works. But I know him because he's had bad takes. And I know him because of that. So I guess it worked for him. The disappointing part is people like Ben Solak who go and promote that even though they know better and they know what it is. Ben Solak knows what it is. And his partner on his podcast, Shil Kapadia, didn't retweet that article. Didn't go and quote tweet that article. So I think Ben Solak was being a company shill for the Ringer, which is disappointing because he's a guy who I used to be a big fan of. And I've seen it happen to other guys at the Ringer that have been co-opted into doing what the Ringer wants to do. And I think the Ringer has been incredibly negative to sports discourse, more so in basketball, but now in football as well, over the last 5 to 10 years, which is a shame because I'm still a fan of Bill Simmons and I was a huge fan of Grantland, which I think did a lot of great things for sports discourse in this country and writing in sports in this country. But I think the Ringer has just become one of the hot take blowhard blogs that there are many of.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see, but I mean, it gets what it's after. Like when I checked earlier this afternoon, that tweet had like 2 million impressions.
Yep.
When you and I did our quarterback rankings, a few people talked about it for a day because they were legitimate, not clickbaity and hot takey, and designed to farm that engagement. And I mean, this isn't just a Eagles podcaster that it takes umbrage with Hurts being ranked 10th and thinks he should be ranked second behind Patrick Mahomes. I mean, I had Hurts 4th on my list. I don't remember where you had him on your ranking list when we did it. Yeah, 4th. So we both had him 4th. I have no issue. I mean, I would disagree with you, but you can put Hurts as low as 8th, and I wouldn't have a problem with it. I would debate it with you, but I would respect the opinion. You lose me when you put Dak Prescott. To a smaller degree, you could make an argument for it. And Matthew Stafford, who is 35 years old, has a bad back, is coming off of an elbow injury, was horrific last year, wasn't that good in the Super Bowl year. On this podcast, we were talking about in the lead up to the playoffs how he has to stop turning the ball over or they don't have a chance. He threw like 8 interceptions in the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season. He threw an arm punt to Jaquiski Tart in the NFC Championship game that if Jaquiski Tart catches, there's 9 minutes left in the game. That's probably a big defining moment in that game, and they don't even make it to the Super Bowl. So it's indefensible. Like, you can defend having Trevor Lawrence and Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson and these guys over Hurts, and that's fine. It's indefensible to have Matthew Stafford above Jalen Hurts, and anybody that sees that knows exactly what's happening. And so I just say support local content creators. the small podcasts, the Twitter accounts with a couple thousand followers or a couple hundred followers, the YouTube accounts. It doesn't take anything to follow somebody on Twitter. It takes nothing to subscribe to somebody on YouTube. Seek those guys out, retweet them. Don't retweet the garbage. Let's make football discourse better this year.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I actually didn't eat the trash right away. Like when the article went out this morning, Eagles fans reacted and I saw it, and I kind of tabbed it away and talked about it with friends, but I didn't say anything until I saw Solak quote tweet it and promote it. And that's what upset me, because it's like, we know what's going on here, man. Like you don't, I don't know. It's upsetting to see someone who I have respect for kind of just promote it because Bill Simmons happens to also sign his checks too. So that was kind of the disappointing aspect of that. And like you said, there's plenty of things on that list that I disagree with. Like Dak over Hurts is dumb. There were a lot of things that I didn't like. Geno Smith was too low, I thought. I know that they had Justin Fields like 26, and it's like, what Justin Fields did last year is more impressive than what half of the quarterbacks have done in their career, just in terms of some of the things he was able to make happen. I just, that list was very stupid, but Stafford over Hurts made it obvious. Like you said, the quiet part out loud in terms of what you were doing. And it's just going to age like milk, because the Rams are going to be terrible this year and the Eagles are going to be very good. And a big part of that is because Stafford's cooked and because Jalen Hurts is an MVP candidate.
Yeah, and my favorite part, and I pointed this out, was that this is all film-based, right? Yeah. At the end of the year last year, Matthew Stafford was 16th on that list, and he jumped to 9th, and he hasn't played a game since early November. So there was no film that changed that. He didn't play in the preseason. It is what it is, and just spot it and avoid.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that is going to wrap this episode up. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode of Chalk Talk. If you're not following the official Chalk Talk Twitter account, be sure you do that at @ChalkTalk_NFL. We tweet out shorts from the show on that account throughout the week. We'll be putting up these graphics throughout the week to let you guys vote on who you think is going to win each of those drafts and all that sort of stuff. So be sure you go check that out. You can also follow Mark and I on Twitter. I'm at Shane Half NFL. He is at Mark Henry Jr. _. Smash the subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Drop us 5-star rating and reviews wherever you tweet, or wherever you tweet your podcast, wherever you stream your podcasts. We will catch you guys next week when we finally will get to recap a regular week of actual NFL football. I can't wait. We'll catch you guys next time.